This is KGW News at Sunrise.
Tonight at midnight, COVID will no longer be considered a public health emergency in the United States. From vaccine mandates to COVID tests, a lot is changing, and this morning we'll break it down for you.
Plus, we have a good energy follow-up today, a huge push for electric vehicle charging stations across Oregon. Got a lot of comments. This morning on Sunrise, we're taking your questions to the experts.
And we're also live this morning in Old Town Portland, Lansu Chinese Garden there, and they're hosting all this month what are known as Cultural Immersion Days. The second one comes up on Saturday. Eric Patterson is behind the camera this morning. It looks like he's just out front the Chinese Garden on this Thursday morning. So these Cultural Immersion Days feature quite a few things, cultural performances being one. You can actually learn how to speak Chinese this Saturday. So a lot happening there at the garden.
Hey, good morning, everybody. You know what we're going to be immersed in?
What?
You do know.
Sunshine.
Oh,
I do know that.
Heat.
Yes,
you name it.
I'm smiling because I'm like, nobody could teach me how to speak Chinese. That would be like a 10-year process.
That ship has sailed.
I'm still working on English. All right. Yes, we do have what is now an excessive heat watch issued for Saturday into Monday, which basically just means we're getting closer to the forecast period with highs expected to be up into the 90s. We'll get more into that coming up. Right now, though, a beautiful morning out there, kind of partly cloudy skies, pretty sunrise colors from the Wells Fargo building looking up to the northeast. We're at 54 degrees out at the airport. This will be a completely dry day. No rain chance today. 66 at noon. We have a high expected of 79. Yesterday it was 78, so it's going to be right in that same wheelhouse. That's your forecast.
Thank you, Rod. After more than 3 years, the COVID health emergency in the U.S. comes to an end. That will become official at midnight tonight.
COVID was first declared a public health emergency 3 years ago. It was January of 2020 when the first COVID case in the U.S. was discovered in Washington. We'll have more on the changes to Washington's vaccine rules here in just a moment. But first, Devin Haskins is joining us to talk more about the changes that are coming to Oregon.
Yeah, good morning, Drew. While the public health emergency ends tonight at midnight, with changes taking effect tomorrow nationwide, most of Oregon's changes start today. First up, vaccine requirements. Oregon healthcare workers will no longer be required to be vaccinated against COVID. And that'll also be the same for educators in K-12 settings. But the state says that requirement will lift on June 17th because it follows the end of the school year. And they also say, the OHA says, if you get COVID, Oregon now says it's no longer recommending you isolate for 5 days. Instead, OHA says wait until the fever is passed for at least 24 hours. And that includes for the general public and K-12 schools. Oregon health officials say this is because widespread immunity and the 5-day isolation window is doing little to reduce transmission.
So we ask individuals that if they've been diagnosed with COVID-19 to, again, stay home while they're sick until they've started to recover. And in those 10 days after they got sick, to consider limiting their contact with others who are particularly at high risk.
Now, despite all the changes, here are a few things that will carry on after May 11th. Oregon health plan providers will continue to give COVID vaccines and treatment at no cost, offer free access to telehealth services, and provide a language interpreter during an office visit. OHA will also no longer report COVID cases on a weekly basis and instead track the COVID infections like they say they do the flu and also continue doing wastewater testing. Christine?
Okay, thank you, Devin. All important information. Okay, starting today, Washington state employees will no longer be required to get the COVID vaccine. Governor Jay Inslee made that announcement yesterday. He put the requirement in place back in October of 2021. The governor says the vaccine mandate played a key role in making state workers and their communities safer.
It's clear in retrospect that many of the public health measures put in place were absolutely necessary, absolutely effective. We would still be in a pandemic situation had they not been in place.
2,100 state workers reportedly left their jobs voluntarily or were fired over this vaccine mandate. Those who weren't fired, though, can reapply for a job, but they won't be getting any special consideration.
We also wanted to look at what's going to happen nationally when this emergency ends. Here's Brandon Lewis with 3 changes to COVID tests and vaccines.
Using these sources, we're answering some of your most common questions about what's changing. First, are at-home tests from the federal government still free? we verified that the government will no longer send you free kits through the Postal Service. And unless you're on Medicaid, insurance companies won't have to cover COVID-19 tests either. Some states and communities will continue giving away free tests. Next, will COVID-19 vaccines remain free? We verified that, yes, COVID-19 vaccines will remain free until the national supply runs out. It's expected to last through the summer. Once that happens, vaccines will remain free for the majority of people on private and public insurance. Finally, you may remember there were a lot of vaccine mandates during the pandemic. Do federal employees and contractors need to be vaccinated? We verified that no. After May 11th, federal employees and contractors are no longer required to get vaccinated. Private employers are still free to make their own rules about whether their workers need to be vaccinated. With your Verify, I'm Brandon Lewis.
Next up here on Sunrise, a new report that claims the number of homeless people living in the Portland metro area is actually going down. Multnomah, Washington, and Clackamas counties released their joint point-in-time count yesterday. Participants involved in the count were asked where they slept on the night of January 24th. And numbers from the count show that what's considered to be chronic homelessness is down 17% across the Tri-County area compared to where things stood in 2022. So let's break it down a little bit further. Multnomah County had an overall increase of 21% year to year, with more than 6,200 people now considered homeless. Washington County saw a 4% decrease in its homeless population with 773 people, and Clackamas County had the most significant decrease, 31% altogether. There were 410 people counted as homeless in Clackamas County. KGW is still diving into these newly released numbers and asking for some clarification on some of the methodology.
Now to your Thursday morning headlines. A roughly mile stretch of the historic Columbia River Highway will be closed starting at 7 o'clock this morning. Crews will work between East Larch Mountain Road and Vista House, trying to figure out how to prevent landslides. Just last month, a slide took out a section of the stone guardrail about a half-mile west of Vista House. Again, that closure starting at 7 o'clock this morning, and it should be ending at 2 o'clock this afternoon. And a grand jury has ruled a police officer was justified when he shot and injured a man in Northeast Salem earlier this month. 34-year-old Andrew Jostad was wanted for a series of shootings, including firing at 2 police cars. When the SWAT team showed up to arrest him, they say Jostad pulled out a gun and tried to run. That's when investigators say Salem Police Corporal Adam Waite shot him. Jostad will be arraigned on several charges, including attempted murder on Monday. And today, the Oregon Senate is walking into what could be the 9th day of the Republican walkout. GOP lawmakers say they're boycotting the session over bills that aren't written clearly. So work in the Senate has stopped for 8 days. Republicans and Democrats met yesterday morning, but nothing was resolved. Voters passed a measure in November that says any lawmakers with 10 or more unexcused absences won't be able to run for re-election. And those are some of your Thursday morning headlines.
Right now, we want to take you over to Old Town because this morning we are live at the Lansu Chinese Garden. It's celebrating Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and it's highlighting a different culture each Saturday. This coming Saturday, it's China. There's going to be music and dance performances throughout the day. You do have access to all of that with your regular garden admission. By the way, a week from Saturday, they're focusing on Hawaii and the Pacific Islands. And then Saturday, the 27th, it's all about Japan.
All right, Rodney Hill stepping back into the new studio because weather remains one of our top headlines.
Yes.
The way I'm seeing it, Rod, you've got this. You're flirting with 80s today.
Yes.
We're soaking up the 80s tomorrow.
Yes.
And then we're going past the 80s after that.
Give me a. That's the, yeah, okay, thank you very much. That's a serious topic, right? And especially a hardship for folks who don't have an easy way to stay cool with air conditioning, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a timing thing. We're now getting closer to the weekend with the 90s we've been telling you about for quite some time. So the Weather Service has popped up their excessive heat watch. This starts Saturday afternoon and goes through Monday. I do want you to notice that the dark brick red color, this does include you folks at the beach, runs all the way up toward the Cascade Cascade foothill communities and runs out through the gorge into about Hood River. So our temperatures haven't really changed much that we expect here in the Rose City. Tomorrow, 86. The record tomorrow is 87, by the way. And then 92 Saturday. These are the records, which will be tied or broken on Mother's Day as we get up to 95. So I'm liking better and better the chance of getting some precipitation developing during the day Monday. If that happens earlier rather than later, we would not make it to 90. This is interesting. So the May of 1987 holds the record for the airport for the most 90-degree days in the month of May. 3, yeah. And that was a consecutive run. 1, 2, 3. So we're going to be challenging that record, it looks like. We'll see how it plays out. All right, what about the rest of the region? Well, at the coast with an east breeze, 81 to 88. The higher numbers would be the ones on Sunday. Valley highs 90 to as warm as 96. Gorge highs 88 to 93. The warmer numbers will be out toward the Dalles. Government Camp 75 to 80. And over in Bend, 82 to 85. So not as toasty on the east side of the mountains as it will be here on the west side. The big story today is completely dry weather, minus the chance of a few little spotty showers, not storms, but spotty showers over some of the mountainous areas. No chance of rain at all up and down the I-5 corridor. These are current numbers. Salem and Kelso now at 48. Portland a little bit warmer at 54. It is 50 over in Newport this morning. Forecast numbers for the Valley. This holds mid-70s. These are the raw forecast numbers, and if anything, they have not been running warm enough. So I would say these are the at least numbers, right? So at least 76 in Battleground. I've got 79 degrees expected in Vancouver. We hit 78 yesterday, so we're going to be real close. There's the hot weather we talked about. The next chance of any rain here in Portland would come Monday afternoon. And then I've added a shower chance to Tuesday, by the way. That's a forecast for now. Here's Mr. Chris McGinnis.
That forecast looks like June. In June, millions of dollars will become available to spur EV charging installation across the state. Some of you had some questions about the program, so we took them to ODOT to get some answers.
And then we do want to remind you this morning that if you know about a story that we should tell or a person that we should profile, let us know. You can text or call us at the number on your screen, 503-226-5088.